Coming up on Early Edition at 6, Korea is in shock after a horrific video of a childcare center supervisor smacking a 4-year-old went viral this week. The government and the ruling party meet to discuss preventive measures. Seoul wants regular family reunions. Pyongyang wants an end to joint military exercises with the U.S. The prospects for an inter-Korean meeting continue to dim as the tug-of-war continues. And 2 suspects have been killed in a Belgian anti-terror raid as the country's security alert level is raised. Stay with us for these stories and more. It's 6 p.m. on a Friday here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Hwang Ji-hye.
And I'm Daniel Che. Thank you for joining us.
And public outrage over a recent case of child abuse at a daycare center in Incheon is intensifying, and that's our starting point today.
Right, as you earlier mentioned, the video footage of that incident is spreading like wildfire on the internet.
Naturally, this has parents across the country fearing for the safety of their children, and in response, the government and ruling Saenuri Party have announced a series of measures aimed at protecting children.
Our Park Ji-won starts us off.
The ruling Saenuri Party and the government announced on Friday afternoon a set of new measures to prevent child abuse. They proposed a new policy direction that involves shutting down childcare centers even one case of abuse in their history and stripping the supervisors and facility directors of their childcare licenses. They also encouraged childcare center operators to hire supervisors and teachers with stronger qualifications and to implement stronger monitoring systems overseen by parents. The announcement was made following an emergency meeting held Friday, presided over by ruling Saenuri Party leader Kim Moo-sung and attended by the nation's Minister of Health and Welfare.
The Saenuri Party will do its best to root out child abuse and improve the dire conditions at child care centers until a safe and happy child care environment is created in Korea.
The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party also launched a task force on the issue, vying to advocate for improvements in the nation's child care-related laws at the next parliamentary session in February.
We promise that our party will prioritize the passage of bills beneficial to the public at an extraordinary session in February so that parents can send their children to childcare centers without worrying.
The number of childcare centers in Korea has skyrocketed over the years, from some 5,000 in early 1990s to over 43,000 last year. Although the government provides the centers with some $5.5 billion annually, only 10% are public facilities. The rest are private centers believed to be lacking proper supervision. Meanwhile, the number of cases abused at both public and private facilities has more than doubled in recent years, from 100 in 2010 to over 230 in 2013. There are currently more than 1.4 million infants and children being taken care of at the nation's child care centers. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
There's a tug-of-war going on between the two Koreas, acting as a drag on the momentum for dialogue. The South wants to hold a round of reunions for war-separated families, while the North is protesting upcoming joint military drills between Seoul and Washington. Hwang Sung-hee reports.
South Korea says its proposal for a round of reunions for war-separated families next month still stands, but it will not be making any new offers to North Korea. The Unification Ministry said Friday the 4-week preparation process for the event will begin as soon as Pyongyang says yes.
Once there is an inter-Korean agreement to hold a reunion event, the South Korean government plans to begin the necessary preparations.
The reunions could take place as late as the end of next month, since the planned joint military drills between Seoul and Washington has been pushed back to the first week of March. But a postponement of the training exercise may not be enough for Pyongyang. North Korea's ambassador to the United Nations in Geneva on Thursday protested the upcoming drills, threatening another Korean war.
Otherwise, if we stand still and if we are in the state of pause, then there might be another Korean war, the second Korean war in the peninsula.
North Korea's state-run Nodongshinmun newspaper on Friday also urged South Korea to end what it called a rehearsal for an invasion that is destroying the mood for dialogue. Seoul and Washington say the annual drills are defensive in nature, but Pyongyang sees it as a practice for war. And with North Korea sitting on South Korea's offer for more than 2 weeks, analysts say the current tug-of-war could lead to a loss of momentum for better inter-Korean ties. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
And despite the tensions between the two Koreas, Seoul and Washington are pushing to strengthen their military posture, officially launching a combined wartime division. The body is tasked with military operations if a war were to break out. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
South Korea and the U.S. have forged the world's first combined division to enhance their joint defense posture and combat capabilities. 30 South Korean officers have been dispatched to the U.S. 2nd Infantry Division in Korea's central Gyeonggi-do province to join up with the division. Military officials say the current Combined Forces Command ensures strategic cooperation between the allies, but the new combined division strengthens tactical-level wartime cooperation. A two-star U.S. 2nd Division commander will head the division, while a South Korean brigadier general is second in command. A South Korean mechanized infantry brigade will be combined with the 2nd U.S. Infantry Division during wartime, with U.S. forces in charge of operations and South Korean forces looking after logistics. If war were to break out, the division will be expected to undertake civilian affairs operations in North Korea, and they'll also be tasked with removing weapons of mass destruction, including Pyongyang's nuclear arsenal. The division will be relocated to Camp Humphrey in Pyeongtaek, Gyeonggi-do Province by 2016 under the Land Partnership Plan. The division headquarters will also be moved to Pyeongtaek, along with the Joint Allied Staff. To enhance interoperability and combat readiness, the Combined Command is scheduled to hold a joint training drill next week. They'll also take part in the Joint Key Resolve and Coal Eagle training exercises in early March. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Korea and Japan will hold high-level talks in Tokyo next week, raising speculation about whether this will bring about an end to the current frosty relations between the two countries. The leaders of both countries have both expressed a desire to improve relations this year, which marks the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties between them. Connie Kim reports.
Senior officials from Korea and Japan will meet next week for talks on resolving Tokyo's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. Seoul's foreign ministry said Friday that Seoul's chief delegate Lee Sang-deuk will meet with his Japanese counterpart Junichi Ihara in Tokyo on Monday. This is a sixth meeting of its kind, but the two neighbors still remain far apart on the issue. Korea wants Japan to properly compensate the so-called comfort woman, while Japan claims the issue has been resolved through a 1965 bilateral treaty. The meeting comes as the leaders of the two countries expressed the hope of improving bilateral ties this year, which marks the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties between the nations. In her New Year's press conference, President Park Geun-hye reiterated that resolving the wartime sexual enslavement issue was a precondition for her first summit with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe.
위안부 피해자 할머니들의 경우에는 그분들이 연세가 상당히 높으셔서 이게 조기에 어떤 그 해결책이 나오지 않으면은 영구 미제로 빠질 수가 있다.
But many doubt the officials will make significant progress in the upcoming talks. This, as Abe told Korean lawmakers during a meeting on Thursday, that it's regrettable the comfort women issue has stirred up a diplomatic dispute. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
It's going down. President Park Geun-hye's approval rating, that is, it's dropped to their lowest level since she took office nearly 2 years ago. Gallup Korea says 35% of 1,000 respondents spoke positively this week of how the president is running the country, while 55% spoke negatively. The amount of positive responses has fallen by 5 percentage points since President Park's New Year's press conference, suggesting the event did more harm than good for her ratings. A recent document leak scandal involving her office and aides may have also been a contributing factor. 2 out of 5 people said they are unsatisfied with the president's press conference, adding she lacked the will to communicate better and listen to the public. Moving on to other stories, with the devastating outbreak of bird flu in 2011 fresh in everyone's minds here in Korea, the nation's government has announced preemptive measures to try and nip this latest outbreak in the bud at the earliest possible moment. Our Shin Se-min has the details.
The movement of birds, farm workers, and vehicles at tens of thousands of farms across the entire nation will come to a complete standstill for 36 hours from the early hours of Saturday morning. This is the first ever nationwide lockdown on the transportation of poultry as the government tries to prevent the spread of bird flu. Korea's Agriculture Ministry says the movement ban will remain in effect from 6 a.m. on Saturday until 6 p.m. on Sunday. Some cattle farms are also on lockdown to prevent the spread of foot and mouth disease. That 36-hour window will be used to disinfect farms, buildings, and vehicles used to transport animals.
These measures will hopefully suppress the spread of the bird flu, as cases have been popping up in different parts of the country.
This marks Korea's third large-scale attempt to decontaminate poultry farms and facilities since the first case of bird flu in this outbreak was confirmed last July. Also, for the first time, the government will penalize farmers who don't abide by the measures. The maximum penalty has been set at more than $9,000 or possibly even a few months in prison. While there is understandable concern, the Agriculture Ministry notes that this is not considered a major bird flu outbreak yet, and the lockdown is just a precautionary measure. The bird flu is thought to come into Korea from migratory birds that come to the country during the winter months. There have been cases of bird flu dotted around the country, with confirmed cases found in Korea's southwestern Jeollanam-do province, the southern city of Busan, and the central Gyeonggi-do province. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Well, earlier today in Korea, a massive 43-vehicle collision in Gangwon-do province has left 23 people injured, 4 of whom are in critical condition. No one was killed, fortunately, in the crash. The accident occurred at 10:14 a.m. this Friday on a highway in Hwaengsang County due to a series of collisions witnesses say may have been caused by roads made slippery by rain and sleet. The accident involved 43 vehicles, including 35 cars, 7 cargo trucks, and 1 bus. Police blocked off the road for 2 hours, but have since reopened it.
This is just coming in. Paris police have closed and evacuated a train station after a bomb threat. The Gare de l'Est station, one of several major train stations in Paris, was closed as a precaution to prevent new violence after the worst terrorist attacks in the city in decades. This according to a police official who was not authorized to speak publicly about the incident. No further details were given, and we will have more on this story as it develops. And in fact, Europe is dreading more possible terror attacks on this Friday. Special forces in Belgium killed 2 suspects in one of several anti-terror raids conducted throughout the country overnight. Authorities say they thwarted a major and imminent attack with the sweep that's suspected to be linked to Islamic extremists. Connie Lee has the details.
Belgium's threat level today is at its second highest point, level 3.
Complementary measures of protection and security will be taken for evident reasons that we are not going to communicate.
This after authorities there staged a counter-terror raid in the eastern city of Vevey. Gunfire rang out between the police and the suspects under the cover of night at a building on Thursday. 2 suspects died in the shootout, and 1 was injured and arrested, according to Belgian authorities.
The investigation was able to establish that this group was about to commit terrorist attacks. The suspects immediately and for several minutes opened fire with military weaponry and handguns on special forces of the federal police before being neutralized.
Officials say the group of suspected terrorists, who are believed to have recently returned to Belgium from fighting in Syria, was planning to launch attacks on a grand scale imminently. Belgium is known to have a large Muslim population, and according to security officials, more than 350 Belgians have gone to Syria to join militants there. Thursday's massive counterterrorism raid comes just a week after the terrorist attacks in Paris at the office of satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo, which left 12 people dead, and at a kosher supermarket where 4 hostages were killed. Authorities say, however, that for now they do not see a direct link between the Paris attacks and the events that unfolded in Belgium. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
And Pope Francis has begun his first full day in the Philippines as Asia's largest Catholic nation hosts its first papal visit in 20 years. The pontiff started his day with a visit to the presidential palace in Manila, where he met and spoke with several members of the country's leadership. He had said his 5-day trip would center on the poor. On Saturday, he will head to the area devastated by Typhoon Haiyan to console the survivors of the powerful typhoon that left more than 7,000 dead. A public mass on Sunday is expected to draw a record crowd. More than 80% of the country identify as being Catholic.
The United States is going to substantially ease travel and financial restrictions on Cuba, a huge step forward in normalizing relations between the two countries. The U.S. Treasury Department says Americans will be able to travel to Cuba without a license, and Americans, mostly Cubans living in the States, will no longer be restricted in the amount of money they wire to or spend on the island. Americans will also be able to use their credit or debit cards while they're in Cuba. The new rules go into effect on Friday, but do not lift the U.S. embargo on Cuba. A month earlier, President Barack Obama said the U.S. will reestablish diplomatic relations with the island's communist government, which have been completely severed since the year 1961. And 2 U.S. climbers made history this week by reaching the summit of what is widely considered the world's toughest rock climb without using modern climbing gear, just ropes for safety. Their near 3-week journey is becoming quite an inspiration for people around the world. Our Kim Ji-yeon has the story.
It's one of the toughest rock to climb, a feat no one has ever accomplished before. Kevin Jorgensen and Tommy Caldwell did it just by using their hands and feet with no professional gear. Ropes were used merely for backup to prevent deadly falls. The climbers reached the summit of Donwell on Yosemite National Park's El Capitan on Wednesday. After 7 years of preparation, the pair started their 19-day ascent, resting precariously on the face of some 900-meter wall.
It's getting pretty rowdy.
And then there were the dangers. At one point, Jorgensen was forced to rest for 2 days just so his fingers could heal. They were torn up from razor-sharp ledges while climbing the wall's difficult pitch 15, his 4th attempt. On Facebook, he wrote that he's learning new levels of patience and will not give up, try again, and will succeed. And he certainly did. The 2 climbers emerged as rock stars on January 14th, with some 2,000 people cheering them on site. They received hugs from family and friends and gained worldwide attention on their incredible journey. Even U.S. President Barack Obama congratulated them through Twitter.
So I'd love to turn all that attention right back around to everyone that's inspired by this project and encourage them to find their own Dawn Wall, because I think what's interesting about this project is that it has elements that everyone can relate to. It's a big dream. It takes a lot of hard work to make it happen.
Their experience is certainly an inspiration to us all. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, most people are probably signed up for at least one social networking service, whether that's Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. I mean, I'm on Instagram.
Most people are. Some people are off the grid and they're living a relatively comfortable life free from any self-discrimination, because experts say spending too much time in cyber community could lead to some cyber syndromes. Our Kim Min-ji has this story.
Social networking services have become popular tools for sharing the events of daily life with others, and it's no different in Korea. According to a recent survey of 60,000 Android users, 40% of the time they spent on their mobile phones was spent on social networking services such as Facebook. People use these services to share photos and their thoughts on the places they've visited, the delicacies they've devoured, and the interesting things they've read. But experts say it's not all good. In Korea, it has given rise to the expression caffeine depression. If that brings coffee to mind, think again. The expression is a mashup of the names for KakaoTalk, a popular messaging service, Facebook, and Instagram. Although it's not surprising for a person to feel a bit down after looking at a friend's photos because their lives aren't as extravagant, experts warn this feeling could be masking more serious problems.
The greater the feeling of misfortune one feels, the greater the chance it could lead to cyber stress. It could also lead to crime. A person could also become depressed.
Although participating in a virtual community may be a convenient way to keep in touch with friends and family, be careful of overuse. Experts say it could have a negative and even potentially destructive impact on your psyche. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. It's a wet Friday for people in Korea, and on rainy days, the traditional Korean combination of makgeolli and pajeon is a favorite thing after a long day of work. And since we are expecting more rain nationwide, it's not a bad idea to stay indoors. Now, as for the weekend weather, the sky will be brightening up again, making it comfortable to be outside. However, a sudden cold front is expected to visit us tomorrow, bringing sub-zero temperatures in the morning and temperatures just above freezing in the afternoon. However, on Sunday, it looks like a bright day for most regions except in the central region and Gyeongsangbuk-do province, which can expect another round of rain or snow. Now, with that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for tomorrow. So we'll start off the Saturday morning at -5 and gets up high at 2 degrees in the afternoon, while Daegu and Busan will be higher at 6 and 8 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island gets up to 6 as well, while Dokdo hits down to 3, while Mangungang dips into the negatives at -7 degrees. Well, that's all for Korea. Now here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
Well, we've come to the end of another newscast. Did I say syndrome about cyber syndrome just now? I meant cyber symptoms. Looking at weather, it kind of reminds us of the social network and the effect it has. People always put up sunny pictures, the best pictures on top of their websites, right?
I know.
Right.
I know.
So you don't.
That's why we're depressed.
Right. We're depressed because we don't understand all the rainy days they have. They don't really post that online.
All right.
Right. We've come to the end of our newscast. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. And this has been Daniel Cha.
And I'm Hwang Ji-hye, wishing you an incredible weekend wherever you may be tuning in from. We will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.